with doingitdiystyle.com here, and when you think of DIY, you usually think of like craft stuff like refinishing furniture or homemade home decor, but it's not always just that. DIY is doing it yourself, which for me, anything you do yourself is DIY. So today, what we are going to do is bake. Now, we have a few events coming up where I decided that I was going to bake a pie, and I have done smaller pies before, mainly for myself. You know, when you get the urge, you just want a sweet potato pie. But this time it's going to be for a larger group of people, anywhere between 8 and 10 people. And my husband said, well, maybe you should try and make the pie beforehand and see how it comes out. And then we can decide whether or not if that's what we want to do. Well, because of the pies that I have made for myself were smaller and they were a healthier version, I decided to look up a recipe. And I looked online, I looked, you know, all the major sites that you would go to find recipes. You know, some of them may have television networks named after them, but all good recipes. But the easiest and most convenient recipe that I have found was actually on the back of my McCormicks Pumpkin Pie spice. On the back, it has the recipe for your signature pumpkin pie, and it's super easy. It just calls for 1 can of pumpkin pie mix, 1 14-ounce can of sweetened condensed milk, 2 eggs, and frozen pie crust, and that is it. Can you believe that? So this is awesome. Let's go ahead and get started and see what we come up with. See if we can match McCormick's signature pumpkin pie recipe. Okay guys, well, let's get started. The recipe says just to mix all of these ingredients together and just pour it into the pie crust. So let's go ahead and pour the pumpkin, and this is 100% pumpkin, not pumpkin pie filling. The pumpkin pie fillings are already seasoned and flavored, so you don't want to have to add all of this stuff that is already added to it again. So just get solid pet pumpkin. So let's go ahead and just pour that into the bowl. I like using this canned pumpkin. I have used it in pancakes. I have used it in what did I make? I made something the other day, a few days ago. Oh, I made the pumpkin, a lighter version of pumpkin cheesecake, and it came out really good. You didn't have to use as much, this is the condensed milk, as much pumpkin, and you didn't have to use as much cream cheese. You actually substituted yogurt, and it came out good. Not as big as your normal cheesecake would be, but just as tasty. And this sweetened condensed milk, it is so yummy in tres leches cake or any recipe really that it's in, but it's so expensive calorie wise. So just make sure we get all of that in the bowl. Okay. And then we're just going to crack 2 eggs. And they say that you should crack your eggs in a separate container in case you get shell in there, then you're not digging around in the multi-ingredients trying to get the shell out. So I'm just going to crack it in this pan. And just put one. And here's another one. Just make sure you don't have any shell in there. And this is awesome too. I've never done this before, but it's easy cleanup. You have your empty shells in here and you don't have to worry about having that slimy mess. So let me just come over here and wash my hands. So of the pumpkin pie spice, we only need 1 tablespoon. So I'm going to get a tablespoon. And that's a lot for this little container. So let's just put that in there. That was about half of my container. And this was not full, so. Okay, and then we're just going to mix it up using the electric mixer. Oh my goodness, guys, can you believe how easy that was to make the filling? The filling is completely finished. All I have to do now is roll out the frozen pie crust. Now, I have never worked with frozen pie crust before, so I'm not quite sure how it's going to work out for me. But we will see. I read the instructions, and it says to bring it down to room temperature and to let it sit out for 15 to 20 minutes. And it has been sitting out for 15 or so minutes. I have kept this in the refrigerator since I bought it. Just planned on using it right away, which was a few days ago. Oh, this rolls out pretty easily. Okay. And this is a 9-inch baking pan. And it says to make sure that you get it in all of the corners to make sure that there are no air bubbles. Now this is the directions for the pie crust, not the recipe. You can bake the pie crust by itself without the filling, but this recipe calls you to use the raw pie crust. And I'm just going to try to be a little decorative here and pinch the sides. One thing I'm noticing, I don't know if it's because the dough has been in the refrigerator. It's not sticky, but it is kind of like Play-Doh, where it just, as soon as you touch it, gets right under your nails. So I've never worked with raw pie dough before, so this is as decorative as I think I'm gonna get. I think I'm lucky at this point that there's not a big hole in it. Okay. So what we're gonna do now is just pour the filling into the pie crust. And just try to get the extra filling off of the mixer blades. I'm just going to pour that in. Now, I looked this recipe up on the McCormicks website, and you know, some sweet potato pies, some pumpkin pies have that dark caramel color to it. This one doesn't. It has a little lighter color. So we will see how that works out. But before I put this in the oven, I like my crust to be golden. I don't like it to look like a cookie or animal cracker. So what I'm going to do is just melt some butter and just brush it along the edges of the pie crust. And then, according to the instructions, I'm going to bake in the oven, preheated at 425 degrees for 15 minutes. Then I'm going to reduce the temperature to 350 degrees and bake for 40 minutes longer. So we will do that and we'll see how it turns out. Okay guys, so here she is right out of the oven. It has been a few seconds since I've taken her out. When I took her out, she was a little more bubbled, but since then she has relaxed a little bit. So the only thing I have done since before putting her in the oven is just brush the crust with some melted butter, and that is it. So I'm just gonna check with the toothpick. It has been the amount of time the instructions say, but I just want to check with the toothpick. Put it in the center. There you go, it comes out clean. That's how you know it's done. So what we're going to do now is just let her sit, relax, cool down, have a drink. But we're going to let her cool for an hour, and then we're going to come back and see how she tastes. Okay guys, it's been more than an hour, so our pie has cooled and is ready to be eaten. But first, I just wanted to show you the recipe that is on the McCormicks website. It does have a picture of the signature pumpkin pie, which is the one that is on the back of the pumpkin pie spice. They do have a classic pumpkin pie on their site. That is not the one. It is the signature. And as you can see, here's our pie. I think our pie came out pretty good looking. The only difference I see is our crust is a little more dark, which is what I wanted, why I put the melted butter on it before we put it in the oven. So the only thing left to do now is to taste her and find out how good she tastes. So I have a plate here. I'm just going to cut a slice. I'm so excited. I love pumpkin pie, and this recipe was so easy. It's kind of like too good to be true kind of thing. Okay, and right now it is the kind of too good to be true kind of thing. is a little crispy on the bottom. Here we go. The crust did say to put it in a non-greased pan. I'm wishing now that I kind of did put it in a greased pan. Although it did recommend a glass pie sheet, which, who uses a glass pie sheet? Tell me, please. Okay, so here's the inside of our pie. Looks very similar, very much like the picture on the recipe. Okay, now the taste test. Let's see how good she looks. My mouth is watering. Very good. The crust on the bottom is a little bit crisp, not really a lot of crispiness like the edges, but just a little bit, just to let you know that it's there. And the filling is so creamy. This is really good. I'll definitely be making this again, and definitely for our event that's coming up. Alright, well, I'm going to go finish the rest of this pie because it's so good. And thank you guys for taking this trip with me and learning how to make pumpkin pie. Thanks for learning with me, and I'll see you next time.